JP the Franchise here, back from Las Vegas, and I brought a friend with me. You guys know him. He's a former NCAA men's basketball coach, Final Four coach with Marquette, with the Indiana Hoosiers, and most recently with the Georgia Bulldogs. You can now catch him covering the game for many networks, including ESPN, Westwood One, and NBA Radio. He is Coach Tom Crean. Coach, welcome to KnicksFanTV. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for asking me. I've been a fan of what you do, so I appreciated you asking me.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure catching up at Summer League, and we definitely appreciate the time that you spent with our students there at Sports Mrs. Classroom. So, again, thanks for joining us here. And on the topic of the New York Knicks, they certainly had a busy offseason, and I want to kick it off with the offseason re-signing of a player that you are familiar with, and that is OG Anunoby, a 5-year, $212 million deal with the Knicks. How did you react when you first heard the news?
Well, I reacted in dismay a little bit because I missed it by about 5 minutes. I was doing NBA radio at the draft with Justin Termini and Eddie Johnson, and I had my phone down. And we had missed each other. OG and I had missed each other that day. I'd missed a call from him around 3:30. Then I tried to call back. And long story short, here comes Woj's break of the news at about 6:15, 6:16, whatever it was. I flip over my phone a minute or two later, and there's a text from OG, 5/2/14. Thank you, Coach. You know, one of those deals. And I was just so happy. I mean, happy doesn't probably do justice to it, but it just was so excited for him because I know how much being respected as one of the best players, not only on a team, but in the game with the future that he has and what he wants to accomplish. And money sometimes is a scorecard for that, obviously. And he got it. And I just, throughout the rest of that time with the draft, before I got on the phone with him about an hour later, I was just giddy with it because I know what he puts into it. I know exactly what he does, how he works, how he continues to work, how he worked when we had him. And I know what's in his heart, and I know how he thinks, and I know his goals. So I was completely happy for him.
When you get that text and it's thank you, Coach, and you're one of the first people to find out about it, all the work that you put in with a player at the collegiate level, from recruitment all the way down, through their matriculation, what does that feel like to you as a coach?
And on a human level, it's unbelievable because we have a great relationship and we've had one for a long time. And you don't build any great relationship without going through hard times, and we did. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But he is as loyal. That old adage, as loyal as the day is long, doesn't do justice to who he is. I tell people, like, you'd be shocked how many former managers that we had at Indiana that they invite him and he shows up at the wedding. I mean, it's just who he is. I mean, he is who he is, and he's going to give sound bites, but he's not sitting there thinking about those sound bites. He's an introspective guy. He's unbelievably smart. I don't know many people that have the memory and the recall that he has, especially where he feels he's been slighted. All right, and so I'll get some of those sometimes about a game I didn't play him as much in, or I should have let him shoot more. We should have raised his release point earlier, all those different types of things. And he doesn't forget anything. But just with seeing that and knowing how important it was for him to be somewhere that embraced him. And they did, because he loved Toronto. I mean, there's just no doubt about that. He loved it. It was his home. He made a home in Milton, Georgia. That's where he has a house, and he travels all over the country, really the world at times. Not only for travel, but to play and work out with different people or at different places. But Toronto was his home, and they'd raised him since he was 19. And to me, that was really, really hard for him when he left. But he went to such a great place. And, I mean, when he went to New York, there wasn't one single doubt in my mind he was going to impact not only the Knicks, but impact the East because of what he brought. And I think I said it then, like, I thought that was the closest Tom had to Jimmy Butler. And when you talk to Tom sees a lot of what he had in Luol Deng. And so you combine those two guys and what they did offensively, defensively, and the fact that OG just had his 27th birthday the other day. there's so much in front of him, so much in front of him that's in his career.
Yeah, that was one of the things that you said when you made the media rounds when the Knicks made that blockbuster trade was you said this changes things in the East. And had the Knicks stayed fully healthy, we might have been speaking of this team in a different way, even though they had a tremendous run. What was it, skill set wise and overall fit with the team that made you say that?
A versatility defensively, that first and foremost, because he can guard 1 through 5. And he's been doing that since basically about January of his freshman year with us at Indiana. And what he brings, he doesn't get beat off the dribble. It doesn't matter if it's a guard. And there was a stat that one of the teams gave me in the draft process, and I could be a little wrong on the size, but I think it was 6'4" and above. He was the #1 prospect in that draft at not fouling the dribbler, at not fouling the man with the ball, which just spoke volumes about not only his length and his stance, but his balance and his ability to stay in front of the ball. And not to mention the fact he's so strong with his legs and he's strong in the upper body, but he's incredibly smart. So the versatility, the intelligence, the ability to play without the ball, the ability to do what's asked, the ability to be able to impact the game on both ends of the floor through the randomness of the game, right? And through all the different things that happen in the game, being able to attack long closeouts, being able to space, being able to cut, being able to knock down threes. And I think we saw in that game that he got hurt, where he had the hamstring injury, we were able to see what he was able to do off the dribble. So like I look at two OGs. I look at the one that people see, but I also look at the one that he is behind the scenes and what he's preparing to be. He's the same person, and it's the same work ethic, but there's so much in front of him based on his skill level and his work level and what he wants to accomplish. But the great thing about OG is he wants to accomplish it within I shouldn't say the constraints, but within the confines of the team. He wants to be. He's a team guy. He's always been, and he impacts teammates. And what is really great about him. And you know this from being around the game as much as you are, not everybody always wants to see their teammates be successful, and certainly not at the expense of them. Now, he is a guy that truly wants to see his teammates be successful. I've been fortunate to coach some guys that are really like that. And OG is really right at the top of that list with the others because he wants to see guys be successful. He wants to win. And he's a very, very coachable guy. And I think that's one of the reasons I was excited about him going with Tom and that staff, because I knew he would continue to get coached at a high level.
Yeah, and those things that you mentioned, it just jumped off the chart. The first game against Minnesota, New Year's Day at Madison Square Garden, and those same things, his cutting ability, playing without the ball. At one point, he's guarding Karl Anthony Towns. And another point, he's guarding Anthony Edwards. I mean, just being a Swiss Army knife 1-5 was so impressive. They go 20-3 with him during the regular season with him in that lineup. I think that's like 87% winning percentage. And then I was at the game 4 in Philadelphia when there's no Julius Randle. Josh Hart is in foul trouble. Mitchell Robinson at that point was injured as well. And in the fourth quarter in crunch time, you're seeing OG Anunoby front Joel Embiid, ball denial, and being effective. And it led to the Knicks winning that game in the fourth quarter with OG Anunoby on primary defender on Joel Embiid. That was incredible.
No question about it. And he can do that. And you go back even to his freshman year. His sophomore year with us, as most people know, he didn't get to finish the year. He got hurt at Penn State. He tore his ACL with 18 games to go, which was just a crusher for us because at that point in time, he was a highly projected lottery pick inside of that. Well, I think after the surgery and through the draft process, most people almost looked at it like it was going to be a redshirt year for him going into the draft. And he fell to Toronto. Well, it wasn't. And he started all these games on the #1 seed in the East, playing for Dwayne Casey, who he absolutely loved playing for, brought him a lot of confidence. And here's a guy that in the first round of the playoffs, he's switching back and forth between Bradley Beal and John Wall. And in the second round against the Cavaliers, he's guarding LeBron. And so that's all as a rookie. And to me, that is what's just absolutely incredible about him is that whatever he's tasked to do, he's going to do it. And I think with what they have now with the Knicks, especially when they go with smaller lineups, now there's not just one guy. Now, obviously, Mitchell Robinson is different, just like Hartenstein was different in this. But now there's not just one guy like OG or Julius Randle that has to spend the game guarding the five and banging there. You know,
Yeah.
OG, that was a great example. He's guarding Maxey early in that game, and then he's guarding Embiid, and he can guard anybody else in between. And he just provides you so much. You have a blueprint for what you want to do defensively, but now, and Tom's got as good as blueprint as anybody in the NBA. But now the flexibility that not only you have with OG, but now you bring in Mikal Bridges, and that flexibility that gives you, there's really not any situation they're not going to have an answer for defensively on anybody in the East or in the NBA for that matter. And a lot of it's because OG is absolutely fearless, committed, and smart as can be on what he needs to do to defend people at the position and to their strengths and weaknesses.
And you mentioned the versatility that he came into Indiana with. Was there a particular skill set or an area where you felt like you guys needed to coach him up that we're seeing now at the NBA level?
Well, I think early on, speed of the game, he wasn't highly recruited. I think he was ranked like 278th. He had numerous offers, but to my knowledge, I think he only had one or two offers in the entire state of Missouri. And he was from Jefferson City, Missouri. The story that it always bears repeating, we go to the Under Armour Classic in Atlanta, and it's a huge classic, and we're going to watch Team Thad, which is coached by Norton Third, and it's Thaddeus Young's team. So we're going to see another player. And all of a sudden, we're sitting there. We've paid for three people, our $750. And I'm watching this guy with a headband and floppy hair and this long wingspan, and he's guarding the ball, and he's trapping the ball, and he's running the floor. And like, he's not in the book. His name was not in the book. So I beeline at halftime over to the scores table. Certainly a violation, I'm sure, but that's okay. It was worth it. I walk over there. You get his last name. Well, I can't pronounce it yet at that point. And so, but there's no first name. So, like, I'm mesmerized watching him. And we continue to watch him over the next couple of days, learning little bits and pieces because you really couldn't talk to anybody. So when when there was a little bit of time and I dove into the film, like you could see, you know, we got intrigued watching him live. We offered him off the film, and it was a no-brainer after our first conversation. I mean, just absolute no-brainer because he was so easy to talk to. He had fluidity. He could shoot the ball. And answer to your question, there were a lot of things. The number one thing he had to learn was the speed of the game. And how to play faster. And we supposed to spend a lot of time with him guarding guards that freshman year in practice, in the summer, him getting beat, him not really understanding yet how to control the ball. He wanted to, but he was probably still up too high. And even though he had those strong legs, he didn't necessarily have the flexibility yet. And so he did a great job with our strength program. We spent a lot of time in the sand pit, a lot of time with hurdles, sprints, you know, all these different things. And he got much more comfortable playing low longer and guarding people. And it's something that we've always tried to do. I mean, I've never wanted big men that couldn't guard guards, just like I don't want guards that can't guard bigs. If they're going to play in the NBA, they've got to be able to guard multiple people, let alone in college. And so I think the defensive versatility, getting him to talk, getting him to stay in a stance off the ball, getting his shot where he really trusted it, especially in a catch and shoot situation, because he came off a lot of screens in high school. But I just think once he got the speed of the game down, once he understood how fast these games were, once he got some confidence, it took off. And I'll never forget his freshman year. It's January. We go to Michigan. And he's guarding a kid named Zach Irvin. And when you guarded John Beilein's offense, you not only guarded the personnel, you had to guard the keys. And there were certain keys that would trigger everything else. And so Zach Irvin was 6'6", pretty quick, good player on their team. And every time he got the ball at the top of the key, there was a whole situation of things that were going to happen that if you controlled the ball, those things couldn't happen. And OG came out of nowhere that night, and we ended up being down by a bunch to the point where we won by over 20. And I swear that OG keyed our team's energy defensively on our comeback that night in the first half. And he made a three, and he started to make a three every game, and he got more and more of a role every game because he was comfortable. And we don't win the Big Ten championship that year without him coming off the bench doing the things that he did. I mean, we beat Kentucky in Des Moines, Iowa, and it's another one of those games like that 76er game. He might be guarding an inside guy like Marcus Lee, but he also might be guarding Tyler Ulis, who was the player of the year in
Yeah.
the league at 5'9" and not letting him get by him. I mean, that's when the intrigue for the NBA really picked up. And by that summer and spring, there was no question he was on the road to being a lottery pick.
Wow. That's great stuff, man. Salute to everybody in the chat once again. Hit the like button, hit the share button, and subscribe to the channel. KFTV's Lunchtime Live simulcast. We are live on YouTube, on Bleacher Report, Facebook, and Twitter as well. Shout out to Bulls fan all day on the Bleacher Report. Says, I miss Tom Crean at IU. Class act. So shout out to Bulls fan all day checking in with us on the Bleacher Report as well. All of my franchise channel members on the YouTube side, go ahead and throw a custom emoji in the chat and let us know that you guys are in here. Okay, Coach. They make the blockbuster trade for Mikal Bridges. What is Tom Thibodeau thinking about right now? I mean, he never takes a day off. Now he's got two of the best defensive wings in the NBA. You have Tatum and Brown in Boston. You have the Greek freak, Giannis and Chris Middleton. You have Paul George, Joel Embiid. I mean, how is Thibodeau going to deploy these two wings here on a nightly basis?
Well, I think in the fact that you've got Hart, that's such a tough defender, Jalen Brunson. I mean, there's so many guys that he has. But when you have two guys like that, there's no matchups that you don't have an answer for. There's no actions that you don't have an answer for. And there's not only can those guys take people away, and not only can they switch, but they can play another half a man because they're so quick in recovery. And I think that's the thing that OG's got some unique traits. And I think Bridges has got these too. The contact balance of OG Anunoby, that's something that we worked so hard on to get our players to understand and get our strength program to understand how important that was. Like Dwayne Wade has that. Anthony Edwards truly got that.
Can you break that down a little bit? What's contact balance?
It's like, okay, whether you initiate the hit or whether you take the hit, you've got to be able to stay on balance. And so much of that is staying low. So much of that is if you hit a guy in the this is why like Julius Randle is unguardable when he drops that left shoulder bump into people, because people like aren't braced for that, right? And he hits you and he turns around, and that's just a matter if he's going to miss or make it. To me, that's contact balance. Julius Randle has very good contact balance. Too many times his defender doesn't. So it's almost like you're going to get hit. There's going to be contact. Do you get knocked off stride? Do you continue to keep coming? Can you recover with your feet or with your hands? Do you know the difference? Can you defend off both hands with both feet? You know, there's so many things that go into it, but it's really just think of bracing for a hit, right? And when you're hit, or if you hit, okay, everybody's going to move, obviously, right? But do they move to the point where there's an advantage gained for the other? And we're always trying to teach our guys what that advantage is like on both sides. That's why Nick Claxton, I think, was able to do what he was able to do. Certainly, you've got to get stronger, but you've got to play. There's so much that goes in to your midsection, right? To your hips, to your core. And anybody that wants to train their kids, or anybody that's listening to this that plays, like, you can't do enough to make sure that your midsection is right, that those hips are flexible and you can turn them, that you play with strong feet. You know, contact balance is a full body deal. And to me, it's being able to play through that. It's being able to cover the second dribble, you know, without playing from behind. And like our USA team right now has got to get better at that all of a sudden. They're getting caught on the side too much or behind too much on the ball, right? So all of a sudden the offensive team, and our USA team has an advantage when they do it as well. But the offensive guards on the other teams in these pre-Olympic games, they have an advantage on our wings over there, because they're getting them on the side, because they're not ready to maybe take that first hit when it comes, or guard that first dribble. And to me, that's what contact balance is. I could talk about it forever, because you got to work on that. But you also have to be able to, you got to be able to use your whole body, man. I mean, you got to be able to use both arms. Like a big thing to me is, can you defend with both hands? You know, can you challenge shots with both hands? That's why I would always liken, and we would show film to our guys, especially a guy like OG. We would show film of a Jimmy Butler. We would show, especially Tom's team. There were two things we always showed with Tom Thibodeau's teams: how they defended coming around screens, and how their bigs defended the ball screen with active hands. And it's just, Tom has been at such a high level with that for so long. And I'm not saying he's the only one, but those are not going to be weaknesses on his teams. So you get back to that question with Bridges and OG. They can do all those things. They can defend all those situations. They're going to get deflections. Mikal Bridges was raised on deflections. OG Anunoby was raised on deflections. They're raised on activity of the ball. You're going to have to go around them or over them to make a pass. You're never going through them because they're so active with their bodies and they use them. And that to me is what great defense is. And the contact balance, the quickness and recovery, all right, and the ability and quickness and recovery so many times being able to move on the pass, right? And you see so many times when people are out of a stance or they're lazy, they move on the catch of the ball and they're late rather than moving on the airtime of the pass of the ball with their hands up, getting a pivot into a closeout. And like Bridges and OG are tremendous at that. And that fits right in with what Tom's doing because he's teaching that. He's teaching flybys. He's teaching all that every day.
And how about with the addition of Mitchell Robinson? Because
his rebounding is ridiculous. And I think there's a guy like Isaiah Hartenstein made a lot of money playing for Tom Thibodeau, Leon Rose, and the New York Knicks because he became an incredible short roller passer. He got quicker with his finishing, but his defensive versatility of playing low and it just being drilled thousands and thousands of times because Tom's working on those things in walkthroughs. Tom's going to have shell drill actions and those type of things and walkthroughs every day. And I think that, and I've seen those practices in the past, like Tom's never going to let the fundamentals get away from being the most important, especially on the defensive side with how they guard all the different actions. Because it's not about the action, it's about the consistency of how you guard. And he's not going to let that get away. And Robinson has made tremendous strides in that. And you can see it in Randall with the way that he plays lower. And I think if they can add one more guy or add one more shooter to that, bigger guy, they're going to get better doing that. And I think when you're being evaluated by Tom Thibodeau and Leon Rose, you can project how much better somebody can get in a short period of time because of the demands you're going to put on them to get that right. So in an NBA team where they may not be as active with their hands or a draft pick may not be as active with their hands, they're going to get that with the Knicks or they're not going to play and they're going to be down in Westchester or on another team.
And as you mentioned that, it's a perfect segue to talk about Tyler Kolek. 34th pick in the draft. The Knicks traded a few second-round picks to the Portland Trail Blazers to acquire Kolek and then paid him. I think that it's the highest guaranteed money for a second-round pick. What were your impressions of Kolek through his tenure at Marquette and the few summer league games with the Knicks?
Well, I love that pick, and it made all the sense in the world. During the mock draft portion of it, being a projected with him, he fits Tom Thibodeau. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I've been close to that program, especially more the last couple of years because we've had different reunions back there for our Final Four team and being back to speak to their team and see practice. So you grow to watch him more and you grow to love him. And I just think what he does is it benefits everybody. And he's improved numerous ways since he was with Shaka Smart at Marquette. He's a much better shooter. He goes to his right much better. He plays with his eyes up all the time. He's a precision passer. He's going to take some chances, but more often than not, they're going to be precision. He's going to deliver the ball on time, on target. There were two things that I thought he was as good at as anybody in the draft, was making layups and throwing pocket passes. And now I think as you watch all his summer league clips, the adjustment he's going to have to make is getting it off his hip just a little bit quicker. There's some guys that are just absolutely, phenomenal at how quick they get the ball up on that reach layup. Josh Giddey comes to mind on that. Tyrese Maxey comes to mind on that. And Tyler Kolek may not have to have that quickness, but he's got to have that kind of acceleration with the ball. And I think he'll get that. I think he even saw it in the summer leagues. He started adjusting to different lengths and things like that. But he can deliver the ball. He can defend. He wins. He's tough. He's competitive. I know from being around there and talking to those coaches, he was in that gym all the time. And what I like about him is that as good as he got, the NIL money came, the stature came, the Big East Player of the Year came, he never lost the humility and the hunger to want to improve. And sometimes when you're young in college, that's not as easy as it seems because it's all coming at you, and all of a sudden you're kind of like you go to George Mason, you don't expect in a couple of years you're going to end up being Big East Player of the Year. It's just
Right,
not how
right.
it's not how it works. But he handled all that, and he stayed incredibly hungry, led a really good team, and I think you could tell what it was like when they didn't have him. When he got hurt late in the year, but he just makes a difference, and I think he's going to be. I thought this a year ago for sure. Going back to a year and a half, he's going to play 10, 12 years easy in the NBA.
How do you see, because as you said, defense could be the thing that will allow him to see a few minutes in Thibs' rotation this year.
Sure.
How do you envision Thibs working with him defensively to improve?
Well, he'll get him even better with his hands. He'll get him better at anticipating the screen, and because of all the different coverages, he'll get him better even on the weak side. And I think what he'll do is he'll rely on him to talk on that weak side. And I think with the new NBA now, when you look at the way the taxes are and first apron, second apron, and things of that nature, those young guys right now, they have to play. Like
Yeah,
you have
yeah.
to have some young guys that have to come in and play. You could say that with Pacome Dedier. Those guys at some point, because of the way the season is and because of what they cost versus what a 8 to 10 year veteran costs on your team right now with the tax situation, they're going to get them ready. And that's a situation where Tom is in an upper echelon of NBA coaches in the sense that if you're not committed to the teaching of your young players and putting them in tough situations, and maybe not necessarily in the games early on, but putting them in hold them accountable situations in practice, you're missing the boat. And I think the coaches that have the highest level of care about player development, and certainly in the East, Tom is at the top of the list. Eric Spoelstra is at the top of that list. I think Quinn Snyder is one of those guys. There's others, but we're like they are. Joe Mazzulla has a chance at this because he was a development guy, so like he understands the level of development. And every program develops their players, but if it's got to come either from the general manager, president, or the head coach on the demands and trickle down to everybody else. And Tom is one of those guys that's never been afraid to get out there and work with those guys on his own. And I think that's part of what makes him who he is. And so he knows what development's supposed to look like. He's going to demand it. And I think he's going to have younger guys more ready to play a lot of times than some of these other guys in the NBA will.
Yeah, and as you said, with the new CBA rules, it's going to be
Sure.
more important than ever to make sure that those young players at the back end of your rotation are able to help you compete and ultimately win games. And speaking of Tom Thibodeau, he's due for a contract extension soon. Early rumblings is that decision could be near. When I was at Summer League, I saw you two having a word there on the baseline. What are those conversations like? Is it more tactical X's and O's, or is it more kind of catching up on life?
It's all of that. I got to see them practice one day too, because Dice Yoshimoto worked for me for 1 year at Georgia.
Yeah.
In between time with Tom at Minnesota and New York, so we had him. So I wanted to see him, and Tom has been a friend of mine for 25, probably 25 years, and since I met him, and we've been together in a lot of different situations. I got to know him through Jeff Van Gundy, and then we all have a mutual friendship with Tony La Russa and Bill Belichick. So there's been these different times we've all been together. So it was a lot of everything. A lot of it's tactical. But I would say this, I'll start with this. This is one thing that I think makes Leon and Wes too, because he's been in this life for so long with this, is great agents certainly of what Leon was when he was doing it, Leon Rose. Great agents have unbelievable vision. And all agents have a vision. But how many agents really have the patience to carry out that vision? And I think that's what you see in Leon Rose. I think you see a guy that's known what he's wanted, known what he wanted to do, has had his eyes on people for a long time, and has a team around him, Wes, Gerson, those type of guys that are around him that can help him implement that vision that he has. Well, the greatest vision you have going right now is you've got a head coach in Tom that's been intertwined with Leon, been intertwined with Wes for so long in different areas, and they know exactly what they're getting with him. And they see the value of it, right? Because they see how the players respond to it. And I think when you look at a hands-on president and what they have too with William Wesley, and Gerson obviously has got this experience, Leon Rose is a hands-on president. He's not He's not just coming down from the bell tower and waving at people. Like he's dining with guys. OG and Leon have an incredibly good relationship. And I know that for sure, right? Like they've built that. And when you look at the way Tom coaches, the way they all work together, you couldn't have a more valuable piece than Tom Thibodeau for where you're going with that team. Because the toughness of what he brings to it, the detail of what he brings to it, the consistency of what he brings to it, and the fact that they've put a lot of like-minded guys, not just the Villanova Four,
Right.
or however we look, but a lot of like-minded people. And they're not just collecting talent in New York, right? There's a plan. There's been a plan. They're carrying it out. And I think Tom Thibodeau is worth as much as it is any of them, whether it's Eric Spoelstra, Steve Kerr, maybe the Greg Popovich money is at another level, and rightfully so. But there's no question that Tom Thibodeau should be paid that way. And I'm just saying that as a fan of his, and not only as his friend, but like, you can't help but learn when you're as a coach, you can't help but learn when you're watching Tom Thibodeau run practice, talk about practice, coach a game. Can't imagine how great it is for those players every day. And he's won championships. He knows what that is. So I hope that he's there for a long time. I know G loves playing for him, and even though it's been a short time, and I just think they got such a good structure there that New York fans obviously got to be excited. I have a daughter that lives in New York, so I'm there from time to time, even though I haven't seen OG play at the Garden yet. But it's like you can tell they got something, and hopefully they can keep it intact for a long time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, man. It just seems, again, from the outside looking in, and you certainly have more personal relationships with these guys, it just seems like no other team has a synergy that this team has right now from the top to the bottom. As you said, Leon Rose has a plan. They're patient. They have not mortgaged the future. They have not traded away draft picks or made a huge swing for something. They've been patient. They've gotten lucky as well. I think the Brunson situation fell into their lap. DiVincenzo as well, getting Josh Hart on a cheaper deal. I think it's part of sports. You need that. But they've had a structured plan from how they execute trades, acquiring draft capital, managing the cap, foreseeing the CBA and the issues that could come about. Then you have players taking less money. I mean, Tom Thibodeau laying the foundation. Everything just seems like they are moving in the right direction, and it's been a long time, especially where the Knicks are concerned.
Well, I think you're exactly right. And now you look at Julius Randle, that if Julius Randle can, stay healthy, which obviously is a big thing because he's had some of those issues. And I mean, everybody goes through it. Like if Julius Randle can look at the big picture and say, you know what, my job just got a whole lot easier with all this right here because it's going to be harder to double me. I still think I used to see Julius Randle back in the EYBL Peach Jam. I don't think it was EYBL then, but I'll never forget watching him in the Peach Jam in high school. And there just weren't 6'8", 6'9" guys passing the ball like that. Let alone the scoring, the strength. And all he's done is get better and better, right? He's an all-star. But I think they're unlocking things in his game in New York. And I think they'll do it even more so now when you let him play with McKellen and with OG on those sides. They're going to allow him to be even more of the athlete, more of the playmaker, more of the decision maker, and certainly more of the one-on-one scorer that he can be. And I think his shooting has improved. And I think if people forget, because he's had that injury last year, how good he is. Now, I don't mean New York fans.
Sure.
They see him all the time, but like people around the country have forgotten how good he is. And I think if he looks at that and says, this is an incredible opportunity to win a championship. It's not about how much I score. It's not about this. I'm already getting paid. If I lay this down and I come out here and bring my best every day, what the other guys are going to help me accomplish and what I can help them accomplish, that's going to be championship level type stuff too. And I would not sleep as the development of Daddier goes on this year. I thought he was the best cutter in the draft. I think they'll fix his shot. I think it's just a little bit inconsistent with a couple technique things. I think they'll get that. He's incredibly young. Yeah. When you see him in person, maybe you felt the same way. He's bigger than you see on film.
Yeah.
But like this dude has been playing in some high-level leagues for a while as a young guy, and he's got some instinctive stuff that's absolutely going to fit that Knicks team. And then you add a couple more pieces on the front line or another shooter, and it just makes it all that much better.
Well, what will be, and shout out to Courtside Hoops on the chat for this question. Once again, we are speaking to former head coach Tom Crean. What will be Thibs' biggest challenge this year, you think?
Oh, I think certainly the minutes. I don't think there's any question about that. And sometimes, injuries and things like that play that out. But he's got a bunch of guys that not only do they want to play in the game, they want to play every game, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, you look at OG, there was no way he was ready to come back in that Indiana game
Yeah.
with that hamstring. But like OG didn't want that narrative out there, right?
Yeah.
Like he didn't
That's
want
what it
that.
appeared.
Well, is he coming back through? He didn't want that, right? Like that's a prideful guy. And like I know from talking to him, he was literally in that facility 7, 8, 9 hours a day during
Mm.
that injury, doing all the different treatments and listening to the doctors and the training staff and doing all the things they were asking him to do. And certainly some of it was rest, but he was in that building, right? And I think when you've got guys like that want to be on the court, he'll have to navigate that. But here's the thing. Tom is never going to walk into the locker room and refer to the Villanova Four.
Mhm.
Tom is never going to walk into the locker room and refer to guys as the stars of the team. Tom's going to coach them all, right? And I think the players understand that, right? I think Tom, one of his strengths, I think one of the great strengths, my son's with the Dallas Mavericks and getting ready to start his third year, and I see this with Jason Kidd there when I'm around it. The best coaches understand that every player on that team, okay, is an entity in their own right. They're the master of their own universe, and you better make sure that you have a relationship with them, that you talk to them. It's not about, necessarily just hanging out, but like that they really feel a value. And I think it's the guys like Tom now with this new collective bargaining agreement, the way it is, they're going to really flourish because they're going to understand, again, like I said, how important those younger guys are. So I think it's just a matter of that. But I think Tom and that entire coaching staff, which is outstanding, is going to have fun coaching that team because there's the ways that they play, but now there's so many different things that they can do. And when you got smart guys like that are tough and the changes you can make during the game to keep people off balance, I think his in-game adjustment levels are going to go up even higher, which is going to allow him to play different lineups, play different ways, and really, really bring problems to the opponent, not only because of their running game and the spacing and the movement that they have, but because of what they can create off their defense.
A couple more questions for you here, Coach. Team USA is getting ready to kick off the Olympics, and one of the interesting headlines yesterday was around Anthony Edwards, a year 4 in the books, and Ant-Man takes his team to the Western Conference Finals. The narrative around who's going to be that face of the league and his ascension is certainly at the forefront. What's it been like for you as his former coach, just watching his rise in the league through 4 years right now?
It's been tremendous. It really has, and he's not even 23 for a few
Not
more
even
weeks.
23.
August 5th. And right now, like when you're done coaching guys, to me, you're not the coach that's coaching the X's and O's or coaching the offense deeper, but you are reminding them, right? Like, I always see it as a part of with them is to remind them of things they're good at, or remind them of their fundamentals. Try to be insightful, try to be inspirational, things of that nature. But at the same time, you always tell them the truth. And I think when you develop that relationship, because when we get him in college, I mean, OG, like I said, he's 278. Dwayne Wade had 3 scholarship offers until the last couple of weeks of the recruiting. Victor Oladipo had 1 scholarship offer, and we're the only one at Indiana. Nick Claxton, we inherited him after 1 year. He was 238, when he came out in the rankings. So it's like you don't have them as stars. So you teach them how to become that. And there's a lot of hard days, a lot of really hard days to get to that. But you understand that, and you understand where you're going with it. And I think once they go up to this level, in the NBA level, you don't stop having that relationship with them like that. When people say, well, you become friends when they leave, well, that's part of what the friendship is. You tell them the truth. You're not on retainer. You're not part of the group that's getting paid, or you're not the handler, right? Like you're one of their coaches. You're going to tell them the truth. And I think Anthony has done a really, really good job over those 4 years, especially in the last 2 years, a little less than 2 years, especially after he got used to playing with Rudy Gobert. I think he has done a really, really good job of getting better, formulating what's most important, which is winning, improving his skills. He's another guy who's in that gym constantly. And I mean, constantly. So he has an unbelievable desire, but now it manifests so much in what he does to impact winning. And that's a maturity process guys have to go through. And I think as long as he keeps on that path and understands the seriousness of each day in those games and how people are coming for him no matter what, and keeps adding things to his game, I think he's going to be that guy. But we've got to remember he is extremely young. He's got 4 years in, but not many people have 4 years in and haven't turned 23 yet.
That's true. And Steve Kerr was quoted by the media yesterday saying that in Ant-Man's pre-draft workout with the Warriors, it was just Ant-Man team said it was just one of those days where for Steve Kerr, he wasn't impressed because he felt like the workout was a bit lackluster. Were you aware of that story or when that happened around that time?
I read that. We didn't do much. They didn't do much work with us. I know the owner was at a couple of games, at both Kentucky games. I saw him there, but they didn't really check in with us. I remember Mike Dunleavy Jr. came in one day. We had a long visit with him. I thought that was really good. But like Dwayne Wade went through this. This happens. Dwayne Wade, and he went to Memphis one time, and everybody at this point saw him as being a 5 to 9, 5 to 10 pick. Well, he went into the Memphis workout, and he didn't have a very good workout. And I remember him calling me in the car ride back to the airport in Memphis after what had happened. He didn't bring it. And Hubie Brown was the coach. And I don't remember who the other guy was in there, but Hubie Brown lit into him about the workout. And the workout, he says, you came in here thinking you were working out for a team with whatever the number was, 14th, 15th pick. He said, what if we were trying to trade to get up to get you and you just worked out the way that you did? And it's like, Dwayne was stunned. And I'm paraphrasing it a little bit on the conversation, but like that was the gist of it. He was absolutely stunned. And it was an unbelievable eye-opener for him. And I'm sure in Anthony's case, because it was during COVID when all this was going on, it was the same type of thing. But if they'd have had a chance to pick him and they'd have missed out on that, think about the topic of the story that would be. Yeah. It wouldn't be about they drafted James Wiseman. It would be about the fact that they passed up on Anthony Edwards. But people forget he was 18 years of age. He should have been, when he's working out for the Golden State Warriors at that point, he should have been finishing his high school senior year. And he was still very, very, very young in his game, I should say, in the fundamentals of the game. And remember, this is a kid that came, and I'm not making an excuse. This was something we had to remember every day. He went from being the number one ranked junior in the country, deciding that he was going to go up another year, automatically went to number one in the senior class, much like Cooper Flagg did this past year. That's hard to do. And he had a lot to learn that first year. But Steve Kerr's got to be happy he's got him on that team right now, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, for sure. And as they get set to kick things off, I'm going to be interested to see, it's always interesting to see the chemistry that a lot of the international clubs have, Germany in particular, because these guys are in the system for years and years. They're playing together. And then Team USA is the compilation of superstars who now have to adjust to a particular role and also adjust to those FIBA rules. So how do you see this new entity, this new version of Team USA faring in the 24 Olympics?
Well, I see a lot of focus on what they're not doing offensively and certainly what they can do offensively, with the explosiveness that they can score with. And there's more focus on that the ball's not moving as much or it's one pass. And that's one thing, but I don't think they're close to where they got to be defensively. I thought the game against Canada in Vegas was tremendous. I thought their activity, the flying around, the second efforts, I thought those things were tremendous. And I hope that they get that squared away because the number one thing, and it was like last summer, the number one thing that was concerning for me as a coach watching it is, are they going to rebound well enough? Are they going to block people out and keep people off the offensive glass well enough? And so far, that's been average. And then I think the other issue that you have is getting Anthony Davis and getting Joel Embiid, especially out to guard shooting fives. They're playing the drop coverage, which has been okay, hasn't been great. I mean, I understand that coverage. The switching, they've got to get cleaned up. There's no doubt about that. They're getting beat in the post too much on switches. You can tell their communication is not as good as it needs to be. But it's like, you got all that talent. They've got to get really, really locked into their anticipation, which is being down, being active. Like we said earlier, moving on the pass. The communication has got to pick up. And I think it's like anything else. It's really easy to take your foot off the gas when you're scoring, and it's really easy to get a little bit down when you're not. But that team, if they're going to win a gold medal, it is going to be because they were able to win the rebounding game and keep people off the offensive glass, that they were not going to give up easy baskets the way they are off turnovers, and that they're going to do a much better job, which I haven't seen in the last couple games, of how they're going to challenge shooters. Right? Their hands are late. They're not up. They're not respecting the range sometimes. And you can say, well, that was their exhibition games. Well, no, they're not. Those are really good teams with other NBA players, and they're dancing with dynamite right now a little bit. And I hope that they get that figured out, because they're certainly talented enough and they're certainly well coached enough, but they got to do all the little things better right now, going into the qualifiers here inside the first rounds, if they're going to win that gold medal. And they're fully capable, but it's going to come down to that. And hopefully they I sent Anthony a message about, you got to make sure these practices leading up to this are like all
Intense.
business, getting your game and getting your body where it's got to be in this, because everybody worked, but now these people are coming at them. So it really just comes down to, they're going to take care of the details and the little things, and not give up these silly turnovers that are turning into easy baskets. But it's going to come down to rebounding so many times in my mind.
True indeed. And last one for you, Coach. Earlier in the interview, you kind of glossed over it, but in your network, in your phone right now, you've got La Russa, Belichick, your brothers-in-law, John and Jim Harbaugh, Tom Thibodeau. Those conversations, the conversations at the dinner table or out with your network, how's that shaped you as a coach over your career?
I couldn't put a value on it. I really couldn't. I've been so fortunate to... First off, like I think I've always been curious, and the more I became a coach, the more curious I got. And I think that's, I want to learn, right? Like, I get my energy, especially like right now when you're not coaching a team, is I get my energy from the learning. I get my energy from the film. And certainly when you get opportunities to do things, like I'll do some things with John Lucas's camps, or I did the NBA Players Association camp a few weeks ago. Yeah, I love that. But like, I got to learn. And when you get around people like that, the energy that you get from them, because the one thing about the majority of those people that you mentioned, and like we just did a clinic, but it might have been 2 months now, a month and a half ago, whatever. My brother-in-law, John, and Jim created the Harbaugh Leadership Academy, really, which is honoring my father-in-law, Jack. Mm-hmm. And so and it's on a website, and it's going to really take off as time goes on with a lot of hands-on type of things. But right now it's more of a website. But we had a clinic. And so it was John, it was my father-in-law, it was myself, it was Bill Belichick flew in for it, right? Like, when you sit even in a clinic situation, you're trying to remember what he said so you can write it down when you're done. Like, I've been very fortunate that the people that I wanted to learn from and that I got to be around were also big-time learners too. Mm. So really what happens, though, even though you don't see yourself at that level, especially when you're a young coach coming up through the ladder, they make it easy for you. Pat Riley was like this when they were looking at Dwayne Wade. And it was so easy, because you find some commonality, and in that case it might be a player, but eventually they see, like, hey, I'm not looking to put it on social media, I'm not looking for a soundbite, I'm not looking to write a book, I'm looking to learn. And when you find people that are like that's why the greats, when that common denominator sits there of their desire to learn, they're more apt to share with you what you want to know, because they want to learn. And I think that's what I've been so fortunate in my family and in the friendships that I've had, and have tried to not be afraid to reach out to those type of people. But I never wanted to betray those things either, right? And there's no question that has been such a huge part. There were days back early on when I first took over at Marquette, I went to see Jeff Van Gundy. Brendan Malone was there. Tom Thibodeau was there. I spent the day with Jeff Van Gundy. Absolutely. One of the cornerstones for the beginning of my coaching career at Marquette was that day going behind the scenes and spending an entire day inside the Knicks offices. Same thing with Larry Brown, over the years. I could go right on down the line, but I've always been very, very grateful, and I've always looked at it as an absolute gift, not a privilege, to be able to be around those people.
Wow. Well said, man. And, I was looking forward to this conversation for a long time now. And I certainly learned a lot on this session. And even though we're going to table it here, we need you back, Coach. We're going to need you back. It's going to be a big Knicks season. So we need to bring you back to break it all down for us.
Absolutely. And I hope that they do more things to add to that wall of yours this year.
There you go.
And I bet they will, though. You got a great wall back there. That is a highlight wall right there.
There you go, man. Hopefully it's a banner. But again, Coach, enjoy the rest of the summer, and hopefully we can catch up soon.
Thanks for having me on. Thanks for the work you do, too. Thank you.
All right, sounds good. Once again, that was Coach Tom Crean, ladies and gentlemen. Like, share, and subscribe. Another classic KFTV episode in the books, man. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Remember that we are simulcasting on Bleacher Report, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook as well. Thanks again to Coach Crean. Classic one in the books, man. Once again, man, share this video. Like, share, subscribe. The franchise back from Vegas, and we had to start it off on a good foot. Great episode, man. Great episode. And hopefully Coach comes back to join us. Bleacher Report, I'm going to drop you guys off here, and we'll catch up in a couple weeks. YouTube, stick around, and we're going to wrap up the show with you guys on YouTube and Facebook. What an interview, man. We got a ton of gems on OG, on Kolick, on Thibs, the coaching process. Man, I enjoyed that one, man. And like I told him, truth be told, I was really looking forward to having him on the show. It was just one of those things where, as you are building this thing up, and you're going through your Rolodex, like, how do I get in contact with this guy? How do I find this guy? It just so happened that at Summer League, we connected at the Sports Business Classroom. So you just never know. You never know who's watching. You never know where you're going to end up. He was on set as a guest for our students that were in the media and broadcasting group. So we had him talking with the students. So afterwards, we were building, got his contact, and we made it happen right away, man. As soon as we got back, we made it happen. So definitely big thanks to Coach Crean for giving us the time and the insight on the show. Salute to everybody in the chat once again. My 2 cents, Jack City 2 lifted. Talento always in here. Darlene Bryant, my franchise channel members. Omega, what's good? Courtney J, Eric L Beats. Eric, salute. I hope you got your snaps and your Mando pack, Eric. I hope you got that. I sent that out a while ago, so you should have got that already. And speaking of which, man, salute to our sponsors at Mando, man. 72 hours of protection, fellas. You can't go wrong with the Mando pack. Make sure that you guys are supporting our sponsors. Go to shopmando.com. Use our code KFTV for $5 off the starter pack. Whole body deodorant, fellas. I was out there in Vegas during Summer League in 100 plus degrees in the summer. Trust and believe, man. I almost had to wear a mask out there because, it was a little frowsy, if you get what I'm saying. A little musty in the atmosphere. A lot of those guys needed the whole body deodorant by Mando. They got a ton of products, from deodorant to liquid deodorant to lotions. Go to shopmando.com. Use our code KFTV for $5 off the starter pack. Okay, a couple more things before I wrap up with you guys. I'm just trying to get my screen tight here. Wrapping up on Summer League, Rokas Jokubaitis, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, hang on. We got another quick glitch here. Give me a sec. Oh, man, what is this? What's going on here? Hang on. Let me just fix this up. All right, another Zoom glitch here. I fixed the other problem. I fixed the Zoom audio, so that was good, right? But now the Zoom video is still glitching out on me with my camera a little bit. But we can get that fixed, no problem. At least we got the audio fixed. That was the big issue that was slowing us up, was getting the audio done. So I'm glad I was able to do that. And I'm just going to switch my screen up and get to these final announcements here. Salute. Okay. All right, we got that going. So let's get to Rokas Jokubaitis. Headed to Maccabi Tel Aviv. Rokas Jokubaitis headed to Maccabi Tel Aviv. There was rumblings that he was going to head back to Latvia. He had just wrapped up with Barcelona, but Rokas Jokubaitis is headed over to Maccabi Tel Aviv. Here was his goodbye announcement. Here we go.
Maccabi fans, Rokas Jokubaitis here. Really happy to announce that I will be joining Maccabi Tel Aviv Basketball Club for the next season. And I'm really happy and cannot wait to start with the team, to play in front of you guys, who are one of the best fans in Europe. And of course, thanks to coach, bosses, and the whole club for believing in me. So, I'm really happy. I cannot wait to start the season. See you guys.
All right, so we wish Rokas well. Had a good run in Summer League. I thought he started to get more and more comfortable as the games have progressed. I was particularly impressed with his defense, and I thought offensively he came around. He uses his size very well, and I think that's a good way to compensate for his lack of defense. He uses his size very well. So good job by Rokas getting his deal. There wasn't really going to be an opportunity here for him to play. So, the Knicks have a heavy guard rotation right now behind Jalen Brunson and Campaign and Tyler Kolek and Deuce McBride. So Rokas needed to get in where he fit in. And then speaking of the rotation, according to our guy Ian Begley, friend of the program, says Tyler Kolek is currently the Knicks' backup point guard ahead of newly signed Campaign. So Begley says that, those familiar with the matter state that Kolek is up on the depth chart. It's going to be an interesting training camp. That will be one of our training camp battles, is the backup point guard or the backup guard rotation. What's that going to look like? DiVincenzo is a guaranteed lock. But let's see who trickles behind that and gets the minutes. So that's that on the point guard slot. Overall, Summer League, hey, Kolek was the star. He was the star of Summer League. Certainly impressed. Love what I saw from him. And he's going to carry that momentum into training camp. Backup 5 spot still unanswered. I was talking to Fred Katz on his podcast today, and he had an interesting thought. Could the Knicks potentially go into camp without a backup 5? Do they feel like they have enough versatility here with Bridges, with OG, to go in there and maybe tinker with some small ball lineups and potentially kind of wait and see? Is this a wait and see situation here with the backup point guard spot? What do you guys think about that? Leave me some comments in the chat and we shall discuss. But what do you guys think about that, man? Or does my guy Big Scaps get into the mix? Does Scott Pitsev make a case? I thought he had a strong Summer League, man. And now I'm back online with my regular camera. I thought Scott Pitsev had a strong showing. 13 points, 7 assists, and shot 69% from the field. Huck Porty got the starts, John Torre. But does Scott Pitsev make a case? I think they do bring Precious back, and maybe they get Scott Pitsev on a 2-way deal, take a shot, and if they need to, trade for a backup 5 in midseason, maybe they do that. But right now with the options, I don't think Kessler's realistic. Richards, I'm not so sure. But, man, there's no other options. No, the Precious thing, Aiden Wilson, Precious thing, I don't think is over. It just hasn't been announced. Gregory Weiner says Scaps is slow. Yeah, defensively, I'm not sure how he'd hold up. But offensively, I like what I saw, man. He's got some skill sets. He's got a bag. So let's see how that goes, man. Either way, hope you guys are doing well. We'll be back at it on Friday. We got a good episode of Worst Take planned. Shout out to my guy JD. He's been collecting the sound bites, and so Worst Take is going to be interesting on Friday. We'll keep it light. It is we're into the dog days of summer. We will keep our ears to the streets. Hear what happens in terms of Tom Thibodeau, his potential contract extension with the Knicks. That could be on the next move on the horizon, or is the backup 5 spot the next move on the horizon? Either way, keep it locked to the number one show for the fans by the fans, man. Everybody on the lunchtime grind. I hope you guys enjoyed today's show as much as I did. Thanks again to head coach Tom Crean for stopping through, and we'll need to have him back For sure, man. Great episode on the comeback. And we'll see you guys on Friday, man. Like, share, and subscribe on the road to 100,000 subscribers, man. Like, share, and subscribe. And remember to support our sponsors at Mando. Go to shopmando.com and use our code KFTV for $5 off on the starter pack. Salute to the replay gang, those of you catching up. And I'll catch up with you guys on Friday. #1 show for the fans by the fans, man. CP the Franchise. I am out of here. Great show. Peace.